Yes, sir.
Call to order the October 15th meeting of the Brentwood Board of Aldermen. If you'd all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a roll call, please.
Mayor Thornton,
Here.
Alderman Dimmitt,
Here.
Alderman Kramer,
Present.
Alderman Leahy,
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Here. Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Sims. Here. And Alderman Weggie.
Here. All right, item number 3 on the agenda is the approval of tonight's agenda. Are there any changes or modifications to tonight's agenda? Alderman Leahy.
On the consent agenda, Resolution 1114 is Proposition D. I'd like to pull that off and have a discussion on that and vote as a separate instead of as a group package.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we can do that. Alderman Plufka?
Item 9F, Resolution 1116, having to do with the joint agreement between Ladue and the city of Brentwood. I'd like to pull that off the consent agenda as well.
So 9D and 9F would move to items 10A, or 10B, 11B and C respectively.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, very good. No problem with that. Any further modifications or to tonight's agenda? Any objection to approving it as amended by consent? Seeing none, it'll be so approved. Acclamation was the word I was looking for. All right, so tonight we have a full house, and I assume it's not because you're all here to find out the exciting goings-on of the Brentwood Board of Aldermen. Our law enforcement community is particularly well represented, I noticed, so I'm guessing that you're here to celebrate the promotions of Nick Lang and Joe Sullivan. And Chief Spees, are you going to do the honors?
Myself and Major Hawkins will.
Fantastic. Come on up.
We'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate both officers as they get promoted to corporal this evening. Can you step up here, please, Joe and Nick? Major Hawkins is going to read a brief bio of each of the officers for us.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
We'll start with Nick Lang. Nick Lang graduated from Parkway North High School in 1992 and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in 1993 as an infantryman. While in the Marines, Nick was stationed in California, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East and was promoted to the rank of corporal. After serving our country, Nick graduated from the St. Louis County Police Academy and worked as an officer for Crestwood Police Department for 2.5 years. He began his career with Brentwood on January 7, 2007. During his time as a Brentwood police officer, Nick has received commendations for his dedication to the preservation of life and for his bravery. He was awarded the McAtee Award for talking down a suicidal subject from the roof of the Metro Garage, and in 2010, he was awarded the Medal of Valor from the Rock Hill Police Department for his actions on the scene when Rock Hill officer Matt Crosby was shot and critically wounded in the line of duty. Congratulations are in order because as of today, Nick and his wife Rocio have been married 13 years. Big day for Nick. Nick and his wife have 3 beautiful daughters, Isabella, Zoe, and Madeline. Congratulations to Nick. Moving on, Corporal Joe Sullivan. Joe Sullivan graduated from Riverview Gardens High School in 2002. He attended the St. Louis Police Academy and worked as a St. Louis City police officer for 3 years. In May of 2011, Joe began his career with Brentwood Police Department. During his time as a Brentwood officer, Joe has been recognized numerous times for his ability to work in and lead a team of officers, as well as his outstanding ability to build relationships within the community. Joe has also successfully served as the acting supervisor for his squad for nearly a year. Joe and his wife Kelly have been married for 8 years. Anniversary? Oh my gosh. Okay, good. Coming up. He and his wife have two beautiful daughters, Kara and Allison. Corporals Nick Lang and Joe Sullivan have proven themselves as true leaders in our community and within this department. We are proud of their dedication to the safety of our citizens and to the ongoing success of the Brentwood Police Department. Please join me again in congratulating the new corporals. And now, if their wives could step forward, and they will be pinning their badges on their husbands.
Oh, boy.
Right through the Kevlar, huh?
Good job. Step in and squeeze in tight.
Thank you. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Nick. Last year, he volunteered to give a speech at our Veterans Day ceremony, and it was one of the best Veteran Day speeches I've ever heard. So thank you very much for that, Nick, and thanks for your service. Congratulations, guys. We have no public hearings this evening, so that brings us to item number 6 on the agenda, which is public comment. If anyone would care to come forward and address the Board of Aldermen, you'll be given at least 3 minutes to speak. All you need to do is state your name and address for the record. And I'm hearing crickets. Going once. Anyone want to come forward and address the board? Going twice. Sold American. Item number 7 on tonight's agenda is reports of the mayor and the aldermen. I actually have a small report to give tonight. I just want to take a few minutes to say a few words about our Brentwood Bound project. I know that there's been a lot of work going on with the Brentwood Bound project, and I know that there's been a lot of questions lately about some portions of it. And what I wanted to do was talk about it on a little different level. And you know, I guess if we wanted to get into some questions, we can try to have a discussion about some of the issues that have come up and whatnot. But I think it's important to remember kind of how we got to this point. And so what I wanted to do was kind of to talk through that a little bit, and in doing so, kind of remind everybody, at least in my opinion, why we're taking this on. And so what I would ask you to do is think back to. I guess it was about 2 years ago, we were over at the Bricklayers Council, and we had sort of a group meeting about priorities for the city and whatnot, and I don't even know if maybe Brandon wasn't with us at the time.
Oh, I was there.
Oh, he was there? All right.
We had donuts, there was coffee, it was the best meeting ever.
But anyway, the point is that, you know, I think at that point in time, we were looking. You know, quite frankly, at that point in time, we weren't even sure that attacking the flooding issue on Manchester Road was a real option. We were still sort of, you know, just sort of toying around with the idea that would even be something that we could attempt to do, much less would attempt to do. We talked about Brentwood Boulevard. We talked about a number of the other areas in the city, Hanley Industrial Court and some things like that. And we talked about, you know, the possibility of attacking those problems. And you know, that was a very good discussion, but I think the point I want to make is that was only about 2 years ago. And in only 2 years, we've really managed to come an awful long way. And the reason I think that's important is because you have to remember how long this problem has been plaguing Brentwood. This has been a Brentwood problem since Brentwood became a city. The flooding in that area of town has gone back to the very founding of the city, and it's been a problem continually. If you go back, and Dan's got some great pictures of you know, that crossing at Brentwood, actually Manchester and Hanley more or less underwater. with horses and wagons standing around it drinking the water and stuff, and then with 40 Zeros police cars sitting near the water and so on and so forth. So, we've come an awful long way in only 2 years in potentially addressing a problem that has plagued the city for an awfully long time. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that, we have come far enough in this project that I think it's almost for sure. I don't want to say for sure. Nothing will be for sure until it's done. but I think we can say fairly confidently that there's a real opportunity to do this. If we proceed down this path, this will work. All right. It may not be perfect, right? It may not be the absolute best thing ever, and I won't even promise that Brentwood won't flood again. But it will work. It will do what we hope to do, which is, reclaim an area of town that has been sorely held back by the natural problem that exists. And that's the other thing that I want to address just briefly is I think it's really important to understand that over the 100 years or so that this has been a problem, there's been a great deal of urban myth that's rolled up around this thing. And one of the urban myths is, well, the city used to go down there and just dredge the creek and then everything was fine, it wouldn't flood. That's not true. I mean, that may be people's impression of what happened, but it's not true. This area of Brentwood floods because of geography, plain and simple. We're at the intersection of two creeks which serve as the watershed for 111 square miles of county to the north and the west. And all of that water winds up here, and when it gets here, lo and behold, the land levels out, it flattens, and it starts pooling up, waiting to get down to the Des Peres River. That's what happens. And that's why it is always flooded. That's why it's a 100-year problem, and that's why it didn't get better when they dredged the creek, and it didn't get better. So, I think that's the other thing to realize is that there isn't an easier, softer way to do this. If we're serious about fixing it, if we really want to see all the benefits come to the city that can come to the city from doing something like this, then this is the way we have to go about it. If I thought that there was any other way, I think we would have explored it by now, and I think we've done our due diligence on that point, and I think that I can, again, fairly confidently say that if we proceed and things, we don't run into anything we're not aware of at the moment, then I think we can solve this problem. Which gets me to the last point that I'll make, and then I'll hush up. I really think that we should. And the reason that I think that we should is not, it really has very little to do with a lot of the things that have been kicked around in terms of development, in terms of greenways, in terms of better streets, Manchester, and so forth. I think all those things are great. Don't get me wrong, and I absolutely think they're worth doing. But the real reason to do this is because nobody else is gonna. This is approximately 1/4 of our community, and it is severely hampered by this freak of geography. And if we don't do something about it, if we have the opportunity to do something about it, and I think we do, and we don't do something about it, then we're doing a tremendous disservice to those people who live in and around that area and those businesses that are in and around that area. It's the right thing to do, and that's the main reason that we should do it. And it's the right thing to do, and nobody else is going to do it. There's nobody else anywhere that is going to look at this problem and say, yes, this is something I want to focus time, energy, and resources on and make it better. And if we don't do it, then I think it won't get done. And I think that the people who live in that area, the people who are most affected by that, deserve the attention and the resources of the rest of the city. And I think if we do that, there's a tremendous opportunity to not only take care of that problem and improve the well-being of the city, the public safety, and all those other things, but also to make that area something that's unique in St. Louis County. I think if we do it the right way, and I think if we focus on green space and parks and giving all of these things a share of that reclamation, for lack of a better word, then I think we will have something in Brentwood that is unique in St. Louis County, and quite frankly, better than anything else anywhere. And if we, I just see that opportunity so clearly, and I look at how far we've come in 2 years to reach that point, and I think it would be just a tremendous shame if we were to lose heart or let, whatever, fear, let doubt, let uncertainty prevent us from trying to go forward and solve those problems. Because even if we aren't successful, I think that people understand what we're trying to do and the reasons we're trying to do it. And I think, they will at least be able to say, even if they say we failed, they won't be able to say we didn't give it our best. And I think that they understand that if we come to that point, and I pray that we don't, and I don't think that we will, but if we did come to that point, I think people would look at us and say, hey, at least they tried to get something done. At least they tried to attack a problem that was really serious and something that affected the entire town and for the good of the folks. And I totally, completely believe that with all my heart, and I want to very much see us take that chance. I want to see us, I want to, if we fail, let's go down swinging. And I think that if we keep going, I think there's a very, very good chance we'll ultimately succeed. And so I say all those things as preface for a couple of things that I'm bringing forward in the next couple weeks. One is, I'm going to start working, and I have been working now for the last month or so with the team to start really promoting our project, all right? Because I haven't talked to any group of people from the Greenway to MSD to any other mayor that I've met at any other conference or anything like that that hasn't been super impressed when they've heard about the project and wants to know more about it. And I think that most of those folks don't know what we're up to, and I think it's probably high time they did. And so I'm going to be bringing forward some things that help us promote that and get the recognition that we deserve for trying to solve this really big problem. And the other thing is that I've talked to Bola, and I'm asking her to get a quote from an independent auditing firm to report directly to the board, not to the mayor, not to the city administrator, not to anybody else, but report directly to the board and give quarterly audits of the funds that are being spent on the Brentwood Bound project. And the reason for that is because, I totally understand the concern that this is a lot of money that we're dealing with and that it needs to be spent prudently. And so it's going to be a little bit beyond just the regular audit function. It's going to be an audit of, somebody that you guys can rely on, the board can rely on directly, that will attest to the fact that the funds are being spent not only in a way that is prudent, but also in the way that you intended them to be spent. And so, I think on a quarterly basis, if you're allowed to have somebody who's independent that reports directly to the board to answer those questions, I think that's all we can do to make sure that the board has as much supervision over the financial aspects of the project as is possible at all. And so I don't have that with me tonight, but I do intend to have it probably at our next meeting, and hopefully you all will think, as I do, that that is a reasonable expense to make in the management of such a large project. So anyway, that's what I've got for my report tonight. Any questions about that? I don't normally take questions, but I covered a lot of ground, so. All right, next up, screensaver. No, not screensaver. Alderman Dimmitt.
No report.
Alderman Kramer.
No report, Your Honor.
Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Two things going on. The Ward 3 meeting for the month of October will be Tuesday night, the 30th of October at 7 o'clock up here in the council room. The other thing that's going on, if you've watched TV, is the election that's coming up on November the 6th. Please be advised that there are 48
Electoral.
There'll be 48 things on the ballot.
48 different elected decisions that will be on each ballot. So contrary to TV, it's not just 1 or 2 races. There are 48 items on the ballot. So take some time, go to the St. Louis County website, put in your address and get a copy of your sample ballot and do some homework, because coming prepared and voting makes your vote more valuable than not. So please come out and participate. Thank you, Your Honor.
You heard it here first, vote early and often. Alderman, just
Come
early.
prepared.
Just vote early, okay.
Come prepared.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Thank you. Our next Public Works meeting will be at 4:30, November 14th, right here. I'll have an agenda at our next board meeting as to what we'll be discussing. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. The next Ward 4 meeting will be Tuesday, October 23rd at 6 o'clock. It's in the Brentwood Forest Clubhouse, and everyone's invited.
Alderman Plufka.
Public safety meets here on the 24th. We would normally meet on the last Wednesday of the month, but that happens to be Halloween, so we'll meet on the 24th.
We could come in costume and make it a party.
Sure, absolutely. You can still do that on the 24th if you wanted to.
Bring candy for all.
Alderwoman Sims.
No report.
All right. And Alderman Weggie.
No report.
All right, under the city administrator's report, Assistant City Administrator Kirkemeyer, what have you
Good
got?
evening. Yes, related to the Brentwood Bound project, I first wanted to recognize Janet Levy, the city's communication manager. She has just a couple of brief announcements and also some things related to the community task force.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for talking about Brentwood Bound already. I just wanted to let you all know,
I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
that's okay. It's a good segue. So Brentwood Bound Community Engagement Task Force has convened about 6 weeks ago. They've been meeting weekly. We've got a core group of 12 very engaged citizens, one of whom is here tonight, one of our co-chairs, Mary White. Shout out to Mary White. She's been leading the effort along with Brad Schneider and Stu Clark. There are 3 co-chairs. We've got a great group. Their purpose is really to educate themselves about the Brentwood Bound project and also educate the community. So they're really going out in full force the past couple weeks and really heading into different meetings, community organizations, different events, anywhere they can find a group of Brentwood citizens and let them know about the project. And also to invite them to 2 open houses, which I want to make sure you all know about too. So we have 2 open houses. The first is on Thursday, November 1st. 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Brentwood School District Conference Center on Handley Industrial Court. The second one is on Saturday, November 3rd from 9 a.m. until noon. So we hope that you will all be able to attend at least one of those and encourage your constituents to do so as well. It'll be a great opportunity to really learn a lot about the project, to talk to some experts, and to ask questions. We'll be getting feedback from everyone who's there. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also related then to Brentwood Bound is just the, which will now be, every meeting will be giving just a project update on cost associated with the project. This was revised about mid-afternoon. I apologize for that, but the updated version completely correlates to 1 or 2 other expenses that were included on the warrant list tonight that we'll discuss a little later on. But just briefly then again, we've divided out to try to track Brentwood Bound project costs in 3 different ways. Investment costs, which are costs that can be recovered to a large extent if the project is not completed. This largely is just the acquisitions that the city has done to date for flood mitigation. And to date, the total spent in that category has been $707,270.37. Another category we like to use would be direct project cost. These are costs that are necessary to provide additional information regarding cost or feasibility of the project. These could be things that are related to design, getting into engineering, and various studies. So we did have a few other expenses in that category related to Deer Creek flood mitigation design and engineering, which is largely the bill that is to CH2M Jacobs Engineering. The total spent to date in that cost category is $1,270,464.12. And then the third category we'll break out cost into would be an indirect cost category For the public, these are costs that are related to the project that do not fall into the other two categories. These are things largely to do with just overall project management. We did have a bill we received from Navigate that now has added to this total that's been spent today, and that project amount now has been $682,399.47. So is there any questions on that? And then the last two items then under the manager's report, there was a question about, as part of Brentwood Bound, again, this is really to address flood mitigation. So I know I get questions, at least on almost a weekly basis still, just how is the flood mitigation going? What's it going to mean for my property? So a question that's commonly asked is, as part of this project, when will the flood maps that get issued by FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, when would those be reviewed again? Is that going to help my property if my property is taken out of the floodway or the floodplain? So BOLA actually had asked Phil, and Phil is here with CH2M Engineering. If you want to come up then and just give a brief explanation of that, that would be appreciated.
Hi, I'm Phil Blon. I'm the project manager from Jacobs Engineering for the flood mitigation project. And just to answer the question about the timing of the letter of map revision process for FEMA, what I can tell you is that it's a two-step process. So the first step is called the CLOMR, or Conditional Letter of Map Review, and that will take place along with and in parallel with the design of the project. So we've started coordinating with FEMA already, and we will be submitting a CLOMR application at some point during our design, and their review process of that would take probably about 3 months, give or take, and that we should get that approved at some point before we finish our design, probably sometime during 2019. And at that point, we would know what we could expect the new flood map post-project to look like. Then you'll have to wait for the project to get constructed, and so that may take about 2 years. And so sometime in early year 2022, we can do an as-built survey of the project once it's completed, then prepare another package to FEMA and apply for the LOMR. But because we would have already done the CLOMR, the review post-project shouldn't take as long. So several months after that, we should be issued you should have a new flood map issued. So that's the process. So you could just wait until the project's done and go through the LOMR process at that time, but by doing the CLOMR earlier, that's what you'd want to do to get an understanding of how the map will change before the project's built, in case we want to adjust anything, and then once it's built, it should be a faster process to get the new map.
Alderman Wee.
Yeah, hey, Phil, thanks for walking us through this. So, the reason I asked for this at Public Works is just, I see this as the biggest risk for this project, right? We do all this and the flood map doesn't move and,
Right.
like, what were you thinking? So, definitely, I think the CLOMR sounds like a great idea to go forward with that, even if it's additional expense. Are there other things that we could be doing that would lower the risk of not having that flood map move?
I don't know. I saw that question ahead of time. Bola told me you'd ask that. I don't know if there's anything the board can do. At Jacobs, what we're planning on doing is putting together a CLOMR application that's well documented and has the information that FEMA looks for, just summarized really well so that there's no miscommunication there, so we can be clear about it, so we know how to put that together. The other things, there's other things you could do to help your community and help lower flood insurance rates in general, and you're already doing some of that by participating in FEMA's program.
CRS.
CRS, Community Rating System. Thanks, Lisa. So so we can look through and help you out with more ideas there. But as far as getting the CLOMR, LOMR faster, more assurance about it, I don't know if there's anything the board can do.
Well, so
Yeah.
the CLOMR, I guess, they're using the same analysis that we're using in terms of that kind of like heat chart that shows the different flood levels and everything. They'll be
Right.
using that same software, that same
Yeah.
same approach.
Right. So we're using software that's developed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's widely used across the United States for modeling the floodplain. It's hydraulic modeling. I've been working on hydraulic modeling my whole career with C.H. Stum Hill and now Jacobs, and it will just calculate how the water flows through the physical characteristics of the watershed and the creek, just using principles of physics that will be taught in hydraulic engineering classes in college. So just another comment about kind of what the mayor said earlier on in his earlier remarks, that if the model says that it will work, we'll have confidence that it will work. The only unknown is that it can always rain more than we design it for. But I think that given the FEMA
The
standard.
current record is
Yeah.
40 days and 40 nights.
Right, exactly. So the 100-year storm, I think, is the right level of risk, because you'd be spending more money to cover more risk beyond that, and I think that's the right standard. But so as long as it rains within within that level of storm, then the water will stay where we have it designed to stay.
I mean, I personally submitted a lot of engineering analysis to government entities and argued for long and hard about that analysis, right? So, I mean, there's, 10 sides to every story. I mean, that's what I'm trying to tease out here. When we go for the Clomer, you were thinking it's going to be about 3 months. I mean, this seems like larger than normal project probably that they're going to see. I mean, I would assume they're working more on like smaller lot sizes. Do you have any concerns that the amount of time it would take them to review the Clomer or come back with comments and we need to rework it would put the beginning of construction at risk?
It could take a little bit longer than what I said, but it shouldn't put construction at risk.
How binding is the Clomer? So if they are on board with the analysis approach that we've taken, if they agree with the methodology and, or could that change when we go to the Lomer?
It should hold over. They shouldn't change their mind over that year period of 2 years. That's the purpose of the Clomer, is to get that locked in ahead of time. And this will go to, FEMA has contracts with engineering firms that have large contracts, so it'll go to one of them to do the review.
Okay.
Under supervision of FEMA itself. And so we already spoke on the phone with one of the reviewers from FEMA, and we're coordinating on some technical issues so that they agree with our approach, but while we're even working on it. So.
Okay, one more. Will we
Yeah,
have
sure.
any visibility if the process is breaking down to our expectations or anything? Will we know, or will we fire and forget on the Clomer and 3 months later we call them and
Right. Well, we're going to be coordinating with them throughout this process, and then, like I said, once they have it accepted, we'll know before we're even finished with all our final design drawings. We'll know where the floodplain is going to end up with the proposed project.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
Alderman Dimmitt.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Phil, when would you anticipate the application for the Clomer will be submitted?
let's see. I anticipate doing that in probably early 2019, maybe January.
Okay. So we might be getting a result. We'll get the Clomer back maybe April, May
Yeah,
2019?
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Okay. And under what circumstances or scenario could you envision where the Clomer would come back and say, it's not going to do what we thought it was going to do at the very beginning? I mean, if we got the model, we used the same model when you guys were looking at designing this back in 2017. What could change from then to the date that they issue the Clomer and the results are different?
If there's anything in our technical analysis that they don't agree with, that they want to change something at some point, I think, and then if we have any levies in the design.
Any what?
The levies.
Okay.
So, which we currently do.
Right.
Although my team is working on, right now, looking at possibly trying to do an alternate design without levies. which you, from, just simply from operation to maintenance, would be some advantages to that.
And your firm has submitted applications for clomers in the past?
Yeah, absolutely.
Under these types of circumstances?
Yeah.
And what's your experience in terms of the clomer coming back and it's mirroring what the initial analysis was? Is it more often than not, or is it usually it comes back and says, yes, we agree with the initial estimate?
If the analysis is done correctly, it'll usually come back approved. If they change some of the factors or some of the inputs, it may be some adjustments to it, but it can usually be worked out. And then if we have, we'll have an opportunity to communicate with FEMA and make adjustments if we need to,
Okay.
during the project.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, and just one last item then that made it onto the city administrator's report is an item that Public Works Committee has been addressing for several months. It's related to the mosquito abatement services provided by the city, and if there should be some changes contemplated by the board. So I was just going to recognize Dan Gumesheimer, Public Works Director, just to give a quick briefing.
I assume everyone has looked at the memo. We discussed this, probably back in July of last year, and moved forward through other education programs and whatnot. There are basically 4 strategies, that the CDC and EPA call out as effective against mosquito populations. And one of them is larvicide, which we hire the county to do, and one of the ones we do in-house is the adulticide, which is the fogging. So we discussed it at the Public Works, as Lisa had mentioned, and one of the things that the Public Works Committee would like to consider is what do we do for 2019? Do we do it or do we not do it? The consensus at that meeting was that we would not do it for 2019, the adulticide that is, but continue with the larvicide. And then some of the other things that we talked about was education, getting people to try to, the main thing is to get rid of standing water so that things can't breed, which is highly effective, but that's on private property, and fogging is not. Fogging's public rights of way. So we were looking for a direction.
Do we need a motion on this, or we just accept it public
Yes,
works?
I assume we do, what do you want us to do for next year?
Kevin, do we want to make a motion?
No.
At this point, it doesn't seem.
No, I don't think there's any motion required. I mean,
It's more of an operational function
Yeah,
of what we do.
right.
It will affect the budget. I can take the chemical out, but I was going to leave some in case you have a special event like Brentwood Days or something. You would want to fog on private property, which would be, well, I guess technically it's public, but parks.
Right. And fog parks before,
We always do before
yeah,
Brentwood Days.
right.
And music in the park.
Right, yeah, special events that are under our control.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yeah, we took this up in Public Works, and I thought we were just looking at it from during the 2019 budget process,
No.
that would just be eliminated.
Yep.
At that.
No, I think it's informational only.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's all I had under our report.
All right, thank you. Let's see, that brings us down to the consent agenda. Just to remind everyone, we have items D and F have been removed. So could I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda minus items D and F?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the board approve the consent agenda minus items D and F. Is there any discussion? Seeing none.
May we read the titles of the items before we vote on them?
Sure. On the consent agenda this evening, we have standing committee reports, which are always there. A special use permit for Arbum Inc., doing business as the Hacienda Mexican Restaurant. I assume that's alcohol.
They're going to come to a food night.
Food night. Resolution 1108, which is approval for a fire HVAC service for the fire department. Resolution 1115, which is the amendment of the contract for the Brentwood Park Playground equipment with minor alterations. and the warrant list for both the regular warrant list and the Brentwood Down project warrant list. So, any discussion of the consent agenda? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
and Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Sounds unanimous. So, on to item number 10, which is old business. Mr. City Attorney, can we have the second reading of Bill number 6222 by title only, please?
Bill number 6222, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance authorizing the mayor acting on behalf of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, to execute an agreement with the fire chief of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
All right, thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to perfect.
Your Honor, I'll make the motion to perfect Bill 6222 into ordinance form.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to perfect Bill number 6222. Is there any discussion of the bill? Seeing none, it does involve money, so we have to have a roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
And Bill number 6222 passes, and upon signature of the mayor becomes ordinance number 4860.
All right, thank you. Item number 11 on tonight's agenda, 11A, is Bill number 6223. Mr. City Attorney, can we have the first reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6223, first reading, an ordinance amending Brentwood City Code relating to the order of business and agendas for Board of Aldermen meetings.
All right, and, oh, this is, the city attorney's going to have some information for us on this one. Yes, great.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I prepared this ordinance and suggested its consideration. What this does two things essentially for the city. One is to import the state law governing the process by which the chief executive of a fourth-class city can veto legislation passed by the Board of Aldermen that has not been in the city code. It's been governed by the state statute. This replicates the state statute. And at least on one other occasion in my tenure here, there was some question about how that was to be done. So I thought importing that to the city code will make it more readily available to the public as well as the officials of the city. The other thing it does is it extends the power of vetoes to resolutions that contemplate the expenditure of funds. That puts resolutions on the same for expenditure of funds as opposed to expressions of, isn't it swell to have, you know, the kid from the third grade recognized in the spelling contest. And I'm sure it is swell, so I don't I'm not against good spellers.
Apparently Alderwoman Sims has a problem with people who spell correctly.
I think it's jealous. But,
My position is well documented.
Ouch. Ouch.
But so, as part again of putting the promoting the efficiencies and focus of attention on substantive matters, this puts resolutions on the same footing as ordinances in terms of process and the political will to proceed with business affairs of the city. So that's all. It's pretty simple. And most of it is statutory and just brought here as a matter of housekeeping.
Any questions for the city attorney? Alderman Demmett.
Thank you. Kevin, the only question I have is the proposed language references 2/3 of the members, if I'm reading it correctly, to overturn the veto.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, I think it was last year, we changed some of the ordinances that, you know, may have been strictly with the zoning code that required 2/3. Do we run into that problem here?
No, sir. What we changed were ordinances that purported to require a supermajority for passage of an ordinance.
Okay.
This is for the legislative branch overriding of an executive veto, and that's statutory.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the city attorney? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Okay, so now we will move to item the item formerly known as 9D, which is Resolution 1114. I'd like to start with somebody making a motion to adopt Resolution 1114 as presented.
So moved.
Moved and seconded that the board adopt Resolution 1114. And now, is there any discussion on the resolution? Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. The resolution purports that we, the city of Brentwood, get on board with Proposition D, which is the 10-cent gasoline tax. The intent of the proposition is to help fund road and bridges and maintaining the highways and state highways and everything with it. Majority of the cities are going to get on board with this because 30% of the money generated from this is going to come back to the cities to work with. So, gee, you vote to get some cash out of Jeff City. The problem with this bill is it very much smacks of what was going on with the casino gambling. And this bill did not get out of committee the way it was supposed to because it couldn't get the supporters. It got tacked onto a bill that was on the floor to exempt a tax for U.S. Olympians or U.S. special needs Olympians who won awards, and that those prize monies would be tax exempt to work with. Thus, the bill doesn't really carry its own merit. We went to the Secretary of State of the state of Missouri, asking them for clarification on the bill with the intent of the bill and the funds raised. Would the funds that it raised, the $288 million that this tax, when fully implemented, should be generating, would that be in addition to the current state legislature's appropriations each year to fund the agencies that are getting the money at present? Or would it be independent to it? The Secretary of State wrote me back an email stating that that's a nice question, but they are not in a position to be able to answer it because of the technical nature of what the state legislature would or would not do. So he recommended that I take it to our state representative. I went to Gina Mitten's office and asked Mrs. Mitten, if this passes, what happens to the cash? She acknowledged that the cash that are currently $254 million that is appropriated each year from the state budget to fund the highway patrol would most likely not be funded because this bill would give them a funding source and not have to go through the appropriations. Thus, the highway patrol is funded by the $288 million, and the $254 million that they were getting would come back and stay in the general revenue, and the state legislature could then allocate that money as discretionary funds as that year's appropriations go through. That's my problem with this bill. You are not getting a guaranteed funding improvement, and it's not 100% guaranteed that you're going to see all of your road and bridges projects moving forward. You are funding the highway patrol along with trying to get your state roads and bridges done. And there's a $34 million increase in the funding after everything gets done. And then you go year to year depending on how many gallons of gas you sell in the state of Missouri to work with. But there is a deception here that's going on, and that's why I honestly would like this board not to get on board with promoting or supporting Proposition D.
Thank you. Alderman Plufka.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect to the alderman, this resolution does not support anything. It doesn't say that we are in favor of it, we are against it. It simply encourages the education of voters on the issue. And I don't have a problem with you providing your opinion as to whether this is a good resolution or not for us to take up as voters, but I object to it occurring during this discussion when all we're doing is simply talking about passing a resolution that will educate voters about the fact that it's on the ballot in November. I agree with you. It is unfortunate that it says, I just lost it.
Go ahead.
Supporting Missouri Proposition D, because the resolution doesn't support Proposition D. I mean, I'm sorry, but all we're doing is being asked to vote on a resolution that explains what the proposed legislation would do, and we're promoting to our citizenry that they be educated about the issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Wakey.
I will call the question.
Thank you. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to call the question. All in favor of calling the question, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, good. Well, go ahead and
Maybe it was premature.
it's unanimous. We'll have the question. So let's see if we can't do this by a show of hands as well. All in favor of adopting Resolution 1114, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All against adopting Resolution 1114, 2. So by a vote of 6 to 2, the Board of Aldermen passes Resolution 1114. All right, next item on the agenda is
16.
Resolution 1116. And again, I'd like to start with a motion to adopt Resolution 1116, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the Board of Aldermen, moved by Alderwoman O'Neill, seconded by Alderman Kramer, that the Board adopt Resolution 1116. Is there any discussion? Alderman Plufka.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I asked for this to be pulled out of the consent agenda basically because of a couple of concerns I have with regard to the, I gotta be able to find it now. There we go, the CBB report, which was authored by Lee Cannon under phase 5 on page 5 of 8. It says, meet with the City of Ladue and Brentwood staff to reach a consensus on the preferred alternatives based on CBB's work and public feedback. If no consensus can be reached, the City of Ladue staff will have the final responsibility of selecting a preferred alternative to advance. I have a concern about us paying for half a study and then not having any sort of say in a tie-breaking vote. From what I understand, looking at the CBB report overall, and from what I understand over the years talking to the City of Ladue, I believe their interests with regard to McKnight Road are different from ours. I just believe that they are. And I don't think that, I think we are going to come to an impasse, that our staff is going to explain what we want to try to accomplish on McKnight Road, and it's not going to be the same as what Ladue wants to accomplish on McKnight Road. And we're going to pay for half a report that's going to reflect their preferred alternatives. I would vote against this.
Alderman Leahy.
I'll second what Mr. Plufka is pointing out. I'll also bring your attention to Phase 2, subsection 5, paragraph 2. It will be the City of Ladue's sole responsibility to identify the stakeholders that should be included in the public involvement section. So,
It's a good point.
yes, if we're going to be in a joint project, and I think Ladue would reach out and say, Brentwood, who would you like on it? But this does not does not make that mandatory. I think that the document should reflect a joint partnership going in it.
And I think that's to some extent contradicted in the inter-city agreement. I'm sorry, I didn't ask for your, but I think to Alderman Leahy's point, I think what he says there is to some extent contradicted in the agreement, but it's a good point.
It is.
Well, I think to that extent, it's probably what's in the intergovernmental agreement that would control, but I see his point.
Could we potentially send this back and have a little bit of working relationship between Brentwood and Ladue to come up with a document that would work so that we can all get on the same page before we get into signing agreements?
You can, yeah, this board, or at least 6 of this board can do anything it wants. So, Alderman Dimmitt.
Well, it might be a legal question to Kevin. As I read this, City of Ladue wanted to be the lead agency. Is that, do you have to have a lead agency if you do this under Chapter 70 of the revised statutes of Missouri?
No, sir.
Okay. So you could have a joint, City of Brentwood and Ladue could be joint
Right.
customers or clients of this
Yes, sir.
study with CBB? Okay.
Your
Alderman
Honor,
Kramer.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Your Honor. I wanted to speak about a different aspect of this topic.
Go ahead.
I had the fortunate experience to be able to visit with some of the councilmen over at the City of Ladue this evening, just before our evening meeting began. They actually start their Board of Aldermen meeting, council meeting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
I've been there.
It's,
I've been there, I know.
It's interesting, and generally over by 5 o'clock, and in this case it wasn't, but.
Well, that's so you can get home in time for drinks before dinner.
I offer no commentary other than just the facts, except for the following, and that is that during the course of the presentation, they were not able or afforded the expertise of the presentation of partner Lee Cannon at that particular meeting, but they did speak about the work order, they did speak about the process from their point of view. And the one aspect that I was particularly interested in was the sampling of public opinion and not just the stakeholders. On McKnight Road, you have residents on both sides from 2 different cities who live there and use the road presumably on a daily basis. But it also carries 21,000 cars a day. Yeah.
Do tell.
It also carries 21,000 cars a day or thereabouts, according to the city of Ladue and their studies, which if you look at it is almost half, a little bit less than half of what Brentwood Boulevard carries on considerably more lanes. The nature of the sampling of the public opinion as to potential solutions that they might work out, if it was relegated just to those people who lived on both sides of the road, would be incomplete. And it seems as though the city of Ladue, from their aspect, and I did visit briefly with Lee Cannon this evening to see what his response was, but from their point of view, it seemed as though they were agreeable to sample the actual drivers of the road using signage and I guess potentially a website, I'm not sure, to get all points of view, not just the folks who live on both sides, but those who actually drive the road who may not live in either one of those 2 cities. And I just wanted to say that if that is the way that this ends up, and it seems as though from Ladue's point of view it does, then I'm in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Alderman Wege?
Well, I mean,
You looked about to speak. So.
well, we made fun of the hydraulics engineer, so maybe we should ask the traffic engineer some tough
Well,
questions.
I was waiting for a member of the board to suggest that might be helpful. So, does any member of the board object to hearing from Lee Cannon, who I suspect is not here by coincidence?
Right.
All right. Mr. Cannon. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Maybe I can address some of these issues, kind of stepping back to how all this got started. The Public Works Director of the City of Ladue contacted me and asked if I could enter into an on-call arrangement with the City of Ladue. I have, my firm, CBB, has an on-call arrangement with the City of Brentwood, and so we did that. Shortly thereafter, City of Ladue Public Works Director asked if I could come in and have a meeting about the first project that she wanted to undertake, which was a study of McKnight Road. She said that, as I was aware from doing some other work here, that they own half the road, Brentwood owns half the road, so we invited Dan Gummershire from the city to meet with us as part of that. One of my concerns is now that I've got 2 clients with 2 on-calls, and I want to make sure that nobody
Gets double billed.
well, that, but I doubt he's more worried about that than losing one of the clients. I don't want to create, through the contractual process, a potential conflict of interest.
Yes.
So I think it's very important for the 2 cities to work together, to collaborate in the beginning. The number one question is, what are the goals? And I think I heard Alderman Plufka mention, they may have different goals, so we need to figure those out, right in the beginning, what are the goals? So it was my understanding that the City of Ladue had an interest in taking the lead as a lead agency on this, and just my opinion was that it'd be easier to work for one of the 2 entities. If we can work out something where we work for both of the entities, that's fine with CBB, as long as everybody understands and doesn't put me in a position to have a conflict of interest as a consultant. So then, taking that position of I have to work for somebody individually, that's how I wrote this proposal, which is separate than the intergovernmental agreement. And some of that language is written on purpose so that there's not a tie because the engineer doesn't get to vote. One of the things that I get to do and I enjoy is I give you my opinions and I generate ideas and recommendations, and then you guys get to choose whether to do them or not. And so I didn't want to be in that position of playing referee in between if there are disagreements and differences of opinion. However, as I believe Alderman Leahy pointed out in item Phase 2.5, that's just something I put in to make sure that I limit my scope. So that could be very easily changed. That's talking about who gets to pick the stakeholders. I don't want to invite them. That reduces my costs. And because if I have to go out and figure out who gets invited and write, do an email blast, that kind of thing. So that was the only intent there, was just to understand that Lee Cannon doesn't have to invite the people, figure out who comes to the party. We can all work together to figure that out, but that I don't have any cost built in to do so. I haven't even read the intergovernmental agreement because it doesn't necessarily involve me. So however you choose to move forward, I'd be very interested in helping you all with the issues that you may have. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the scope that I wrote. And I'm very interested in hearing collectively about what the goals and the intent are. McKnight Road's a very interesting road. If we were starting from scratch, we typically don't take a freeway and connect it to a 2-lane residential street. So that in and of itself is a concern. And then on the other south end, you have another major state arterial highway in Manchester Road. So it's just natural that more people are going to flow through there than you would want to have on a 2-lane residential street. And I think some of the concerns come with kind of the awkwardness of the current traffic control with, the stop sign there, right immediately south of the interchange. We're going to look and see, are there alternative things to do? So, any questions for the Alderman Kramer?
Your Honor, in reading the work order, the second and fourth paragraph from the City of Ladou's point of view seemed to me, as they seem to communicate, similar to what we are also looking for. I don't know that I understand that there is a difference between what they've elicited in paragraphs 2 and 4 as what the common goals are.
Perhaps I could ask this question just so I'm clear. So when you wrote the work order, was it just you were writing to the City of Ladou? You were proposing a work order to the City of Ladou or to a joint? Yes, so I've got it written, so it's written to Ladou, and it even says in here that Ladou's going to pay CBB for this work. Right. And it's up to them to whether or not they get paid by you. Okay. I don't send you any invoices. That's what the intergovernmental agreement does. I understand. Okay, so it makes some sense that it's Ladou heavy on the work order. Definitely, yes. Because that's who you're working for. Yes. Yeah, got it. Alderman Plufka.
Thank you. In that first, to refer to what Alderman Kramer had to say, I couldn't disagree with him more, I guess. It says workable solutions to current traffic congestion and safety issues. What I read from your report, the 8 pages of it, or the work order, the 8 pages of it was that Ladou is primarily concerned about moving more cars through that area in a more efficient and faster way. And my sense of it is personally, and my sense of it is from talking to constituents along that roadway on the Brentwood side, is that they would prefer to discourage the use of that road to communicate to Highway 64.
I think some of the efficiency is getting on and off of that road as well.
Sure.
And not just the thoroughfare.
Sure.
Yes. But
that was my point. That was my point in what I said earlier.
Yes. Yes.
About perhaps the differences between the two cities' philosophy when it comes to that piece of road. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Dimmitt?
Actually, I don't have any for Lee. I just have one question in general. And
Well,
that is,
I'm not a general, but I'll do my best.
who was it that drafted the intergovernmental cooperation agreement? Did Kevin?
I suspect that's our city attorney.
I did not draft it, I reviewed it.
Okay. Did it come from Ladou?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. Any further discussion? Are we ready for a vote, or would we like to take some other action?
I guess this is a question, and maybe it's Alderman Plufka, but you're right. So this is a work order that we are going to pay for part of it. And what's the worst case scenario if, Ladue recommends, another level of highway to get more people through there faster or something like that, that we just, can't stand? I mean, what would the actual impact of that be? Because that wouldn't be implemented until we authorize funding, and we
No,
would
you're
have
right.
lots of levers on that, wouldn't it?
And if I can just speak to that, I mean,
Sure.
it's a good question, because I really think all I'm talking about is in my opinion, the wasting of $9,000. I mean, that, you're right, you're absolutely right, because no matter what recommendations are made, they're not binding on anybody, and would have to have further action before anything would be done. You're absolutely right about that. I've been wanting an opportunity to develop some sort of comprehensive plan, but the more I get into it and the more I've learned about the situation is, I don't know that I don't know that it lends itself, because I don't know, and maybe we'll find that there's more consensus than I'm thinking there is. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But you're right, the biggest concern or the biggest problem with this is that we wasted 9,000, whatever it was, half of the 18.
$9,875.
Right. So,
Alderman Kramer.
Your Honor, technical question, and Lee, I apologize if you have one more second.
Yes, sir.
Well, I guess I'm confused, because in the fourth paragraph, your last sentence says, "To that end, the city of Brentwood is agreeable to participate in this endeavor." So how did that come about?
Just the fact that.
Our city administrator said
Just the fact that we met to talk about, the fact that we have an interest in seeing what the problems are and seeing if there are solutions to them.
So did we?
Maybe I overreached with that, but.
If I may, that's why it's before the board.
I was going to say, that is.
But this is his letter to the city of Ladue, that we have agreed to be interested.
Well,
That's my question.
Dan, you have met with your counterpart, yes? Okay. I think that's, and you guys have talked about potential possibilities, right? I mean, to some extent, okay.
I do have a question, please.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Under fees, page 7, the extra services would be conducted as directed by Ladue. Ladue could authorize some extra services. We don't think they're needed, but we would still incur the expense of those.
I think that boils down to the details of the intergovernmental agreement. What Lee is saying is he wrote this as a proposal for his employer, which would be the city of Ladue. And as a cover my bases, if you will, so that Brentwood is a known entity in the proposal, even though you under no obligation to pay me under my proposal. Right. So that would be addressed by whatever agreement we reach with the city of Ladue.
Yes, okay.
Alderman Lockmiller.
I had the same concerns that were voiced here about the scope of work, but I guess I need some clarification. If we vote against this resolution, is there the possibility Ladue progresses with their own study with Lee and does something on the other side of the road that maybe affect us without any input throughout this whole process?
I should think so, yes. Although you can't build half a lane, and it's hard to study half a road. Having a traffic light in one direction and not the other is somewhat difficult.
Well, isn't it a lot of the concerns that people that live on, I guess, the west side are having a hard time getting out, just like the people on the east side? So they address something via stop signs or whatever on their side, which just makes everything getting out of our side even more hectic.
So I think, jump to conclusion possibly, but I don't think we can implement a very good solution unless we reach a understanding with both communities that this is good for the whole road. And it affects, as Alderman Kramer mentioned, through traffic. It affects Ladue residents. It affects Brentwood residents. So, yeah, you can't do half of an improvement to this road. Any further, Alderman Dimmitt?
Lee, would it make your life a little simpler if you just represented one or the other instead of both municipalities?
Well, that's what he's saying he does. That's what I'm saying. This contract is done to do so, right? But the intergovernmental agreement is done between the cities only.
Right.
To bring you into their
That
process.
way
He's only got one client to serve.
No, I understand. I guess I didn't ask it correctly. if hypothetically, if we had our own traffic consultant and Ladue had their own, could those two consultants work together to come up with a joint plan for McKnight?
I
Have
think
you
that
done
would
that
be,
before?
I think that would be even more difficult to maneuver through. That would be like two attorneys making something work out better. So now instead of,
You know, divorce cases always seem to work out so well.
That all depends on who pays the fees.
I'm sorry, I just, you know, there's always more than one way to
Skin a cat.
solve a problem. So I'm open, but to me, the first part of this process is to bring the spokespersons together for the two cities and figure out what the objectives and the goals are for the process. I mean, I think we can all agree that it could be better than it is, and we may have differences of opinions about what the issues are, and some of those are real and maybe some of those aren't. I know that my property is available at 2 times market value any day you're ready. So. Alderman Lee.
In the past, Your Honor, the one stickling point that's always come up is the stop sign at McKnight and York, right there, it's just south of 64.
I'm familiar, yeah.
Is it the intention of this board to revisit that issue of potentially maybe removing that stop sign? Or is this board going to hold to past standings that says that sign can't be changed? And if so, are we sharing that with the city of Ladue before they spend time with the traffic engineers? At what point does this issue get discussed between the two cities?
Well, it's not so much the two cities I'm worried about. The people over in Ladue don't scare me a bit.
Well, but
The people in York, however, have torches and pitchforks.
But the problem is, I'll agree with Lee, it probably is easiest and the best way to proceed by having a city as his director. The dilemma being is, in establishing goals and intents, has the city of Brentwood communicated with Ladue that that intersection is a big problem that we don't really foresee a quick and easy solution, and the potential of removing that sign in the past has been a no-starter?
I would think the chairman of our Public Safety Committee could probably speak to that a lot better than I can.
No, I think Alderman Leahy brings up a good point, and that is, but it's a larger point. It's not so much that specific element of this roadway, but it's to a larger question. Perhaps we should have a better understanding at staff level of what the goals are between the two cities. Perhaps that's it, and that if that's better articulated to us, then we can live with, you know, having the tiebreaker, you know, language and all that stuff, and because I take to heart what Mr. Cannon has to say about the ability to do anything comprehensive. I mean, obviously it requires both participants, and I'm not trying to. My goal in bringing this out of consent and having this discussion is not to derail it necessarily. It's just that I'd like to have a clear understand. I'd like to have a better understanding of what Ladue's intent in bringing it up in the first place is, and have them hear what our intent is articulated from, and maybe that's already been done, and to find out in the meeting at staff level or at engineering level that the two desires are compatible enough that a comprehensive study makes some sense.
I would be happy to have those initial discussions, you know, as part of our, you know,
Study.
process. I don't have to charge anybody, so if you want to get together to figure out if that works, that's acceptable to me. I think what I just heard was that Alderman Plufka is offering to have a special meeting of the Public Safety Committee to discuss the issue of McKnight Road, and to invite participants from Ladue and from Brentwood, and have Mr. Cannon there so that we could kind of at least lay out and find out if there's some common ground before we tramp too far down this road. Is that what I heard, Dave? Or?
Absolutely.
I think that's a marvelous idea.
Drinks
I'll
at my
second.
house at 5 o'clock. And 2 cases of beer.
Now, that's a public safety meeting.
Well, if you want the Ladue folks, you'll have to do it at 4.
Right.
Okay, so,
I forgot.
4:30.
thank you, Lee. Thank you. So that being the case, how about if we would send Resolution 1116 back to the Public Safety Committee for further investigation and report at, say, a time that's more convenient? Yeah?
Absolutely, sure. I mean, that's.
So I'd take that as a motion and a second then.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Great. Is there any discussion on that motion?
There's a motion on the floor. Can we withdraw that first?
Well, the motion on the floor is to dispose of the motion on the floor. So it's a motion to refer to committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, we can. So is there any discussion? Yes?
Never mind.
Okay. So is there any discussion on the motion to refer Resolution 1116 back to the Public Safety Committee? Seeing none, all in favor of referring Resolution 1116 to the Public Safety Committee, please raise your hand. And I'm seeing unanimous agreement that this all falls at Dave's doorstep.
And it'll be on the agenda the 24th.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Outstanding. All right, that takes care of that one. But we've been at it so long, my screensaver's gone off.
Citizen comments.
Yeah, I know the number, I just don't know the subject.
Citizen.
All right, so that brings us to item number 12, which is citizens' comments. If anyone would care to come forward and address the Board of Aldermen, state your name and your address for the record, and you'll be given at least 3 minutes. And since we haven't had a citizens' comment in so long, I'd be inclined to go as much as 4, maybe 5. So you get an extra couple minutes, no extra charge.
Hi, my name is Stu Clark. I live at 2331 St. Clair, and I just want to talk to everyone here tonight, let them know we're going to be doing some canvassing with the Brentwood Bound Task Force. And we're going to have a canvass a week from this coming Saturday, and we're looking for volunteers. We need about 10. So we have about 15. We're going to do just drop some information about what's going on with the development on Manchester Road. And so to do that, we need help. So if anyone has,
Is that the 27th, Stu?
it's the 27th, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So we just need 10 people, and we're going to hope to get those people by next Monday when we have our meeting. So we volunteer. Anybody who'd like to help, you're more than welcome. And just contact Janet or show up next Monday, 6 o'clock at the rec center.
Do you have a time on Saturday for people who might not be able to
It's
make
going to
it?
be from 8:30 to 9:30. We're going to meet either here or at the rec center, and we'll have it's just going to be a literature drop where we stop by. But we really want to hit every house and drop literature to both promote the forums that we're going to have and then to also talk about the program. So that's my comment.
All right, thank you.
Your
Any
Honor,
response?
I have a request of Alderman from Ward 4. Yes.
Okay.
In conformance with the Brentwood Forest codes and regulations, could the two of you check with the Brentwood trustees and get permission both?
We handled that, we took care of that.
Took care-
It's going in their monthly news instead of door to door.
Super.
Taken care of.
We'll need the same type of courtesy for the potential scouting for food that's coming up in November, if you'll let your board know, and if we could get permission for that too.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Any further citizen comment? Seeing none.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Did I hear move to adjourn? I could have sworn I did.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? We stand adjourned.
Pick up on the 17th.